philosophy. You might be interested in a little bit of my background. I have a doctorate in theoretical physics from Notre Dame. I've worked as a technological forecaster, as a physical oceanographer, and in the software field. I've been a knowledge management consultant and an entrepreneur. Along the way, I've thought about many philosophical problems and published a number of papers in refereed journals. The philosophy that I've developed is a bit different from most others that you've encountered. I call it open philosophy. The reason is that it's open to multiple points of view and a whole range of experience. It's not limited to science or religion or spirituality in a general sense. It is not limited to the Western point of view or the Eastern point of view. It's not limited to the modern point of view or the ancient or medieval point of view. Rather, it combines multiple points of view in order to develop a fuller and more round picture. So each topic is treated from the point of view of science, of human experience, of spirituality, whatever seems relevant to it. The result is a fuller and more complete philosophy, one which allows you to live a life integrating all of the aspects of human experience. This is the philosophy that I hope to share with you in this series. What is philosophy? Everyone seems to have their own point of view. Some people see it as universal and rational. Other people see it as reducing our experience to some scientific basis. Some people see it as personal and private. The definition that I'm going to be using for this series is that philosophy is an open, consistent, and livable worldview. It's open because it's open to all of human experience, scientific experience and spiritual experience, historical experience, and universal transcendent experience. It's consistent because it's been thought through. It doesn't assume any contradictions. It may not have all the answers, but it's got a framework or a foundation in which future answers can fit in a consistent and logical way. And finally, it's livable. Livable is the important part that makes a difference between academic philosophy and real philosophy. An academic philosopher can, for example, defend the idea that there's no consciousness, but he can't live the idea that there's no consciousness. When he tries to convince others of his point of view, he's assuming that they're conscious. Skeptics may preach skepticism, but they can't live skepticism, because to live skepticism is to say that life is not real. And if life is not real, there's no motivation for doing anything. And so, livable is the most important aspect of philosophy. It's the aspect that makes it different from an academic ivory tower discipline. It's what makes it relevant to the life that we human beings live every day. Why study philosophy? What difference does it make? Why take the time and effort required? Well, if it doesn't make you happy, you shouldn't be doing it. The basic reason for studying philosophy is the joy of discovery, the joy of knowing. Aristotle begins his metaphysics by saying, all humans by nature desire to know. It's our human nature to be curious, to be rational, to want to understand, to want to resolve difficulties, to want to wrestle with our doubts and resolve them. Philosophy is the process of doing that. It's not seeking new data as science does. Rather, it's taking the data of the experience, the human experience that we already have, and teasing out of it its implications. It should be implicit in our experience whether God exists or doesn't exist. It should be implicit in our experience what the basis of human morality is and ought to be, what human rights are and what they ought to be. All of these things are implicit in know. But we have to learn how to tease out these implications. And that is the process of philosophy. The process of philosophy is to examine our knowledge and our beliefs critically and to see whether they agree with our experience. If they don't agree with our experience, then we ought to be discarding them. But if they do agree, then we ought to be developing that agreement and working out an understanding which is coherent across the many kinds of experience that we have. When we do that, we'll have a deeper vision of reality. And a deeper vision of reality will give us deeper and more profound values. Our values are based not on some assumptions, not on what we've been taught, but on what we experience, on the reality that we see. So as we see morality more deeply, our values will deepen correspondingly and become more compatible with reality and more truthful. This will lead us to be better citizens, to be better parents, to live more fulfilling lives with our loved ones, and it should also raise our self-esteem, that we'll recognize that we are knowers, that we've wrestled with the problems, and we've come to an understanding that we didn't have before. So these are the reasons to study philosophy. Western thought is often said to be either or. Either there's mechanism to explain things, or there are ends finality. Either there's free will, or there's causality. Eastern thought, on the other hand, is often characterized as both and. There can be both causality and free will. There can be both mechanism and teleology. The problem is that Eastern thought doesn't usually do the hard analysis which is required to show that both are possible.
Let's think about a house, a real house with a weathered roof, maybe chipped paint, plants growing on it, a history, a family that lives in it, and a neighborhood. When an architect considers the house, when he presents it to us, he presents it in terms of various two-dimensional views. These are called projections. One projection may be a skew projection that shows us the house in perspective, but in order to build it, he has to present various elevations, such as a side elevation, a front elevation, and so on. But even all of these external elevations don't tell us all that is needed to know even to build a house. We need also a floor plan and maybe sections through the house. That is to say, what the house would look like if it were cut in half. Yet no matter how many projections we have, how many two-dimensional drawings of a three-dimensional object, we will never exhaust the reality. The reality is always deeper, more complex, and more full of surprises.
Well, where do we go from here? The natural starting point for philosophy is where the Greeks started, with reflecting on nature and natural processes. But that's not the starting point of modern philosophy. Instead, modern philosophy begins with René Descartes and his Cartesian methodological doubt. Descartes thought that we should begin by doubting everything that we know. Yet doubt and knowledge are not opposed. Doubt has to do with commitment. I can know what pi is, but I doubt that I do. And so knowledge and doubt are compatible. What's incompatible is doubt and belief. Belief is being committed to something, and doubt is suspending that commitment. Now, modern philosophers will tell us that knowledge is a form of belief. They define knowledge to be justified true belief, or maybe causally justified true belief. Yet belief and knowledge are very distinct. Knowing is being aware of an experience, either directly or indirectly through other people. Believing is being committed to some I'm sitting in my chair because I experience it, and I'm aware that I'm experiencing it. I believe that someone will be interested in this video, and as a result of that belief, of that commitment, I've actually made this video. Different things. So we'll be discussing that. Then we'll move on to nature, the natural beginning. We'll be discussing the laws of nature and how they are different from the laws of science. And we'll be discussing whether the laws of nature replace God, as many modern thinkers believe that they do. Do the laws of nature replace God, or is God necessary to keep them in existence? We'll be looking at that topic. After that, we'll move on to evolution. Evolution is the keystone of modern biology. I'm not a creationist. I think that evolution is good science. But I think that the spin that a lot of modern thinkers have put on evolution is very bad science. The spin is that evolution shows that random processes can produce order. Yet, as a physicist, I know that there are no unobserved random processes. The random processes of quantum mechanics occur only during observations. And for the entire history of evolution, up until very recently, there weren't any observers to observe. And so there are no random processes as far as physics is concerned. So how is that compatible with this idea of randomness producing order? We'll be looking at that. There are another number of other topics that we can discuss, like free will and determinism, and as time allows, we will be going into them. So I look forward to your comments and your thoughts.